Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Tim. Hi, everybody.
For some reason, that link was doing something strange. So I kind of had to come in a different way. Javen, can I make you a co-host too, besides to watch?
Sure.
I had that just kind of automatically.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.
It's like this changes every time. Have we seen Lois yet?
I think she might be the Gloria Dei that just joined.
Okay, good, good.
I'm so sorry. There were problems logging on, and then I saw, no, somebody has already started the meeting. It's like, no, I think I'm supposed to start the meeting. And I couldn't get out. It's okay.
And that's why I came in kind of in a funny manner, and it was like, oh.
Yeah, that's because I
Can't
had
get
already
on
started
like
it, and then I think you started it after I started it.
Yeah.
Whatever. We're here now.
We're here. Okay.
It's gonna work.
Happy Pentecost, everyone. It's good to see you all.
Such a beautiful service today, and so meaningful and inspirational. Thank you so much.
Spirit is upon us.
Great.
Good to see you all.
Paul and I had a good time doing the streamer things out in front of the church
Oh, yeah,
this
you
morning,
did a
and
good
people
job.
were running past, like out for their morning run, and they would turn, they ran by, like, what are they doing? They have those giant cat toys outside. What's happening?
Cat toys. Good.
Uh,
Pastor Javen, when I saw you start and singing the little, humming happy birthday, it's just like, oh, this is just so good. So Mr. Rogers, it was great.
That's a pretty high bar. Mr. Rogers level is.
Good. You could have had a cardigan on. It would have been perfect.
I did one.
Where are the cupcakes?
Those were left.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. To get red cupcakes, you had to buy the 4th of July multi-pack that had also blue and white ones.
Right.
And I had to buy a giant pack if I wanted to have enough red ones, to really make it look like a party. So I had a lot of cupcakes.
Okay, and I hope you brought some to share with the rest of the class this morning.
And here, Javen, I was thinking that you made them.
No. No, I did not. I'm committed to my children's sermons, but I'm not that committed to my children's.
Well, I think maybe we could begin. This is our last forum for the year, for the program year, and God willing, maybe we'll be able to do forums in person in the fall. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and kind of wait and see how things go before then. But great to have you on. We still will have coffee hour next Sunday after church. It's the last Sunday of the month. And then we'll see about how to proceed. We won't actually have a real coffee hour, even when some of us are at church, at least for a while. And we'll still be wearing masks and things. But so possibly we'll still do something on Zoom later in the summer. We just haven't figured out those details yet. So just stay tuned, and we'll cross each bridge as we get to it and see how things go for us. But our art committee has been asking for a chance to share some of their the work that they've done during the pandemic. So we are glad to welcome Susan Gangl and Tammy Wold and other members of the art team who are with us. And they've asked Tim to help moderate their presentation today. So you all can take it away.
Well, Susan has been chairing the art committee for quite a time, and then Tammy has had consented to be a co-chair, and even during the pandemic, there have been art acquisitions. And I think that there had been a desire to broaden the scope of acquisitions even before the pandemic, even before George Floyd's murder happened, and before so many of those things. A lot of the diversity of acquisitions was already begun, and probably all the more intentional during this time of COVID. I was even, Bradley, as you were in doing your shot at the opening of the service by the river, one of the pieces, Annie Haney, who had done an exhibit of her paintings a few years ago, we then commissioned to do that beautiful river painting that hangs over the fireplace in the colonial room. And that also, I think, was, kind of pre, even our admitting our land, how the land has belonged, to the native people ahead of us. That river acquisition, I think, was really a beautiful beginning of connecting to nature and diversity. So Paul was able to take pictures, those things that have not been up and displayed yet. We would have had other opening, art exhibits during the Sunday school hour, which we would often do a couple times a year. But since we weren't able to do that, we wanted to get a chance to highlight those paintings and other artwork that has been accumulated this last year. So we'll start with a few years ago, Anne Girondolas, whose exhibit Sketch Prayers was in the gallery. Her Sketch Prayers studio explores questions regarding the role of sacred communities and the power of images and image making in shaping perceptions of God's holy imagination. We have 3 of her works, including one in the narthex titled A Voice for the Voiceless, which shows immigrants in life jackets crowded together on a boat. There is that piece of art. It really hangs right at the top of the stairs as you're coming up the stairs to the narthex. And as Pastor Bradley noted about her works, it carries me to the intersection of love and justice, where the word gives birth to new incarnations of peace.
That's right, Tim. And the art committee has wanted to continue to expand this vision, and we were certainly encouraged by the Racial Justice Committee, and Pastor Bradley talked to our group as well. So, and you may recall, we don't have a picture of it today. It's kind of hard to get a good shot of them, but Janet McKenzie makes really unusual, interesting, diverse images of Jesus and other biblical figures and contemporary people as well. And so we bought 3 of her prints of her works, and they are outside the library. So perhaps you've seen them. Oh, there they are. And if you haven't seen them, do check it out. They're right across from the door to the library. So you can see Mary, Mother of Mercy is the first one. The second is really interesting. It's A Brave and Quiet Heart. And it's a piece to memorialize the folks that were killed in Orlando at the nightclub. The third is called The Divine Journey. And when she found out some of the history of Gloria Dei, Janet wrote and said that the child in the very foreground is a Mayan child. So we were very pleased to get those prints. So do check them out when you walk through the building. And despite the pandemic, we continued. In fact, we had better luck even. And it might even, we don't really know exactly why, but things just seem to start falling into place, and we find inspiring artwork to add to our walls. So we wanted to share the new ones with you. The first is one of the 2 Mali textile pieces that we found. I was actually talking about going shopping with Susan Peterson, our former senior pastor, and she mentioned this lovely little shop called House of Talents in the Gavaday Common of all places, and they bring in work from Mali and other African countries. And this piece is with two women on a boat, and they're created in a style and technique originating from the Bambara tribe in a form called Bogolan or Bogolan Fini, which sadly the rest of the world refers to as mud cloth. Now, that term doesn't really convey the complexity of the process. It involves making or taking the raw cotton, spinning it, decorating it with natural dyes using medicinal plants, as well as finely processed clay that ceramic artists, I've heard them call it slip. I've used slip. It's a very fine wet clay liquid that we use to paint on pots often. Well, their slip has a high iron content, produces a black pigment, and when they apply it to the hand spun and hand woven cotton textiles, this is the kind of work we get. Really lovely pieces. And the cloth and the designs on it are rich in cultural significance as well. The patterns and images might be based on history, beliefs, or proverbs, or just stories from everyday life like these. And when we went to the shop, we got to meet Kate Herzog, and she is the manager there. These are after it was framed. We were just so delighted with these pieces. This one, kind of have to look at it closely to see the little baby on the first woman's back, and then probably the daughter following her. And we just love the image of that. But we learned from Kate Herzog, who by the way, she mentioned that, I've been to Gloria Dei. I've been at I'm not sure what it's called, the International Marketplace that's been held at church. I'm not sure if that was annual, but she has been there and has sold her works in probably the gathering place, I guess. Anyway, she told us about the people that created these pieces. Now there's two kinds of this Bogolan Fini. There's the geometric fabric that they design and make patterns for clothing. So you can see this is the interior of where they make these particular pieces. And she told us the gentleman she works with in Mali, his name is Boubacar. He was a teacher, and he started being really concerned with the unemployed people in Mali that just couldn't find work anywhere. And they didn't have skills. They don't have a formal education. So he built this place and created a school, a training school. And he was very conscientious about sustainability as well. So all the processes used in the mud cloths leave zero waste. They're just amazing. And the cloth is dyed with herbs as well as the mineral mud or slip. So this is the training school on the inside, and you can see probably rugs or fabric for clothing. I'm not sure. It looks like rugs to me. The next piece, they're being dried out in the sun, and that's part of the process of painting with mud on the cloth. And you see varied patterns there laid out, just really lovely patterns. And then there's a picture of the gentleman who is the teacher. That's Boubacar in the middle. And the lady in blue is another woman that Kate works with in Mali, and Kate is the woman on the left. So we got to meet her, and she's really lovely. She's also, I just found out, she has done a TED Talk. So if you look up on houseoftalents.com, you'll get the whole story behind this, because there's a lot more detail. It's really fun. They sell baskets and things for the home, jewelry. I almost bought 2 chairs, and someday I might go back and get them. Really lovely woven things. And it's in Gavaday Center. So that was really fun. Let's see. So our next piece is that we want to talk about. I forgot that was kind of a little extra piece there. Just before the holidays, in 2019, Mona, Alf, and I went over on Franklin Avenue to the All My Relations Art Gallery. And it's just down the street from the Minneapolis American Indian Center. It's kind of unusual looking. It's like a garage painted yellow. It has a coffee shop attached to it, and you enter through that coffee shop. The coffee shop is called Powwow Grounds. And then inside the gallery are some really amazing and large, lovely works by various Native American artists who have kind of made it big on the, at least on the local scene, if not more. And they have been showing it at the Minneapolis Art Institute. So that kind of gives you an idea. They were a little out of our range, but really amazing to look at. But we walked back through the coffee shop and we saw the several lovely God's eye weavings like this one. This one wasn't there yet. So we looked at the wall, and it's called the Mooney art wall. And you'll recall that, and I thought it said Minnie when I first read about it, because I hadn't even noticed the sign before. Mooney is part of the name for Minnesota that the Native Americans gave it, Minnesota Makoche, land where the waters reflect the clouds. So that's the story of the Mooney art wall. And it provides an opportunity for lesser known Native artists to show their works. Well, we got so excited about these pieces, we couldn't decide, we wanted all of them. I said, I hadn't seen a God's eye since library school, and my professor used to make them on toothpicks with very, very slender thread. I'd never seen them this big. They were 36 inches across, 28 inches across. They were so bright and lovely, and we wanted them all. But, it was the end of the year. I think the budget, we'd used up the 2019 budget because it was almost Christmas. And anyway, we wanted to learn more. They were made all by one woman, Terry Mooney. She's a Lakota Indian who lives over Little Earth. And she's the great granddaughter. Oh, I'm sorry, Tim, that's your part. But I'll say a little bit more about these pieces. It took us several months to get approved, just the processes that it takes sometimes to email. We were, by the time we got into the throes of the pandemic, it was only email that we were communicating. So by the time we got the budget launched again, she'd sold them all. So we said, well, now what? So we asked her about it, and she said, well, I'll make them. What colors do you want? So, wow, we asked for blues and whites and reds. So this is the turquoise one. Believe that, Tim, this is the smaller one, the 28-inch one. And then, well, I don't remember which is which, but they're both lovely, and we'll get them hung at some point. We just don't have everything out yet because not too many people are in the building. They have a cross in the center. And Tim's going to tell us a little bit more about the background and how they got made.
So Terry Mooney is a Minneapolis artist from the Lakota Nation. She's the great granddaughter of Otokte Plenty Kill, best known as Standing Bear. She is Sakangu and Oglala Lakota. Her great-grandmother, Nellie DeCory, was Oyate Oglala from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And her mother was Lakota, living on Rosebud in South Dakota. And her father and his parents were from the Yankton Reservation. So a lot of, diversity of background. Her parents then moved to Belcourt, North Dakota, where her mother learned to make God's eye weavings. And Terry learned from her mother and made the comment that she found that making them was good therapy during times of difficulty. Her dad makes the frames in the shape of a teepee or war bonnet, and then Terry points them in the 4 directions. And here's from a Facebook video that she had done about her work. Terry has said, I always make them when I am in a good place, because when a God's eye is hanging in your home. It represents peace and harmony, and it tells people they are welcome in your home. I have been truly blessed by people who like my work.
Well, we certainly liked it. We loved them, and we're so thrilled to have them all, have them both. What we were kind of amused at, and was that when she first sent a preview of what she was working on, they're so big, and she, I guess, didn't have a place to hang them. I'm not sure, but she had her little grandson holding them up, and all we could see was the tip of his head and his tiny little stocking feet in their living room. So that made us even more delighted. The symbolism, the God's eye, or ojo de Dios, is a spiritual and votive object, and it's commonly found in Mexican cultures, but also indigenous and Catholic communities. They're very common in the pueblos of New Mexico, and some believe that they have the power to see and understand things unknown to the physical eye. Well, that reminds me in a very different way of the Eastern tradition of icon painting, where the eye of the saint or Jesus seems to be looking almost through you and seeing you very deeply. I did a little bit of icon gazing years ago, and it is a powerful experience. This is a different version of that I really like.
All right, we're going to move on. Our next pieces are by.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a question in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Someone asked, what is the size of that God's eye?
Okay, when I did it, I have it written down here. One is 36 inch, one is 28. It'd be good if I had my glasses on here. The white with blue and red, regular blue, is
That's 36.
That's 36, and the turquoise. Oops. Yeah. And the turquoise one is 28 inches across all the way around. So.
Yeah, so they make quite a statement and impact. Okay, we're going to move on. Our next pieces are by African American artists from Minneapolis, Beverly Tipton Hammond. This first one is from a wonderful series called Hatitudes, of church hat lady portraits. Big church hats are a Southern tradition and became popular after the Civil War. And she showed some of these works at a local gallery, and it was reviewed in the Star Tribune. And the title that the Star Tribune had put when they were promoting the exhibit was Black Women Express Grace Through Church Hats in Minneapolis Museum Show. So I thought that was really beautiful, express grace. And her, what also the tradition, it does, this exhibition was at the Minnesota African American Heritage Museum and Gallery, and a visual journey through African American women's church hats, which have a deep spiritual and cultural significance in their community. The tradition dates back to slave times. Black women forced to work in domestic settings ditched their uniforms and donned beautifully decorative hats as they headed to church on Sundays. One of the reviews says, Beverly Tipton Hammond's paintings have a free-flowing quality, often depicting subjects with their eyes closed, wearing hats so complex that they almost look psychedelic. But Beverly Tipton Hammond, she's not just a church hat lady and not just an artist. She is an ordained elder, dancer, choreographer, visual artist, singer, songwriter, and entrepreneur. She began painting 12 years ago as a hobby and has over 100 paintings. And her medium is acrylic on canvas and wood, but she shares a studio called Berries on the Vine with her artist husband, Drew Hammond. And she was recently chosen as one of 16 artists to create the Minneapolis Black Lives Matter mural. So, and their studio appears to be very, very close to the Northrop King building in Northeast Minneapolis. Of course, it's closed at the present because of the pandemic, but the artist delivered this painting, to church during that time. So, and our next, let's go to the next. This is.
I wasn't sure if this was in the right
Yep.
orientation. Is it supposed to be up and
Got
down?
it.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
This one is hanging by the entrance to the narthex. So some of you may have seen it when you came for prayer time during Lent. These were acquired from Ayenga Bokamba. She's exhibited at the Minneapolis Institute of Art and in the Foot in the Door virtual exhibition last year. This first painting that we have was created with an internal frame. The canvas, the painting canvas wraps around the frame, and it arrived just before Ash Wednesday. It's called Meditation on Silence, and the artist notes, the painting supports spaciousness and moments of relaxation and renewal, and just plain room to breathe at the end of a hectic day, month, year. And then the second piece, moving on, Lois, to the next. The second piece by Ms. Bokamba is titled Pivot, or Let's Talk, and has not yet been framed. She's done variations on the same theme in additional pieces that you can view on her website. We loved these bright and vibrant colors that celebrate life, and we thought it would look perfect in the Easter season as a fitting complement to the quieter meditation on silence. And then moving on, Susan will talk about our two most recent pieces, come from a series called Essential Workers.
Oh, we love these. This was the hardest decision we had. There's 72 pieces on different essential workers that Carolyn Olsen did. She is an artist who's living in Duluth. Her originals are pastel, and from those, she made giclée prints, and we chose just two. Now, I had to remind myself what a giclée print is because I kind of forgot. It's hard even to pronounce, but giclée, it means a high quality digital print made on inkjet printers. Well, if you said inkjet and you look at these prints, you wouldn't think that was too impressive. But if you look at them in person, wow, they really pop. And a regular printing would not have conveyed the power of these pieces. The underlying theme of this series is the pandemic, but the individuals portrayed are just carrying out their everyday activities at work, but under the stressful circumstance of the pandemic. Her categories really widely range, but they include primarily occupations in the fields of health, education, and food production and distribution. But there are also election judges, bus drivers, carpenters, building maintenance, disaster cleanup, and morgue workers and ministers helping the grieving. She's been interviewed, Carolyn Olsen has been interviewed on the PBS NewsHour and also by the very local East Side Freedom Library in St. Paul. They had some kind of a grant where they were subsidizing or giving a percentage of the sales to I think it was a food organization. I can't remember now. I should have looked that one up. I missed it. But I think what's really interesting, these interviews that they had of her, in one she said, well, I've always been basing my subject matter in my daily life, family, friends, observations of others, often strangers. I'm from Duluth originally and moved to the cities after high school to study painting and graphic design. But from there, I moved to Mississippi, where I worked as a graphic designer for a nonprofit organization dedicated to social reform. Being one of the few white folks in our neighborhood, I spent a lot of time observing, listening, and re-examining my place and work. My drawings and paintings at that time were my way of trying to understand the people and the places where I was living. Being from the North and white, it was a cultural education. My paintings were universal stories, such as a mother's love for her family, children playing, but poverty and race became a part of my subject matter. You can view these two pieces in the display cases near the parking lot entrance. So this is the child care workers here. And I just love all the little details, the little animals and the toys in the background, the little vase on the wall. It's just very sweet. And the other one is of the food shelf workers. And this is amazing too. It's just, you know, if I said, oh, I think I want to draw a picture of food shelf workers, I wouldn't have come up with this. It's just amazing and eye-opening and really a delightful image, as tough as the story happens to be behind it. It's a lovely piece to look at. Now, this reminds me, art committee member Liz Knutson, I asked her to get these framed. She took care of not only that, but she installed them. And we invite you to take a closer look where she did this. She created an interactive display in the display cases near the parking lot entrance. And so she put up, provided pens and double-sided tape with little circles, and you can fill out the answer to the leading phrase, frontline workers are. And based on this past year of experience, we'd have some new thoughts on that. Now, in closing, that reminds me to thank the entire art committee for their work in discovering, discussing, and deciding on these pieces. It's no easy task to choose just one or two pieces from a whole array of amazing artworks, not to mention to decide on them as a group and by email. But that's exactly what we did this year. It took some time and we got through it. Our committee members are Tammy Wold is co-chair, as Tim mentioned, Mona Alf, Paula Hutchinson, Liz Knutson, June Peterson, Jean Weger, and Tim Strand, of course, who is our staff liaison. And we're grateful for his part, especially today. And he's really given us good guidance over the years. So each of these members have brought unique gifts and contributions to our committee, and I want to thank them now. They'll remember that our last in-person meeting was March 12th of 2020, the very night that Pastor Bradley sent out the message that the building will be closed for a few weeks. We were among the last people, along with the choir, to walk out and not return for a year. But nonetheless, it's been a fruitful year. We got a lot done, and we're so eager for you to see these wonderfully creative works, signs of God's presence as you return to the building. And I thought today was such a perfect day. God is working through these artists, and they're speaking not in tongues, but in visual expression and leading us to new ways of seeing God in others. So I'm just loving that we did it today. In closing, I want to give you a comment directly from Ann Girondolas in her introduction to Open Our Eyes, an Advent book of illustrated prayers. And that's this one, I believe. And she's referring to her own works in words and sketches, but I think they can be applied to the works you've seen today as well. She says, the drawings become visual manifestations, offering a glimpse into God's holy imagination, a world of justice, mercy, and love. So thank you. Thank you for listening, and we'll entertain more questions and comments.
I was just going to say, I so have appreciated Gloria Dei's vision when the new addition was built, that the gallery adjacent to the fellowship hall was really prepped to be a gallery, and that the hallway was prepped to be a gallery, and that it I think too often in churches, we end up with static art. And these spaces give us a chance to have emerging, ongoing, creative expressions of color and, and present so many different artists. And so I'm just so thankful that we have, that Susan and others have guided acquiring new artworks that we can rotate, so that it's like you see it at a different spot and you sometimes see it in a new way, when it's not just always assigned to the same spot all the time. So as we've certainly experienced with some of our revolving artwork in the sanctuary. So anyway, so any questions? Susan and others and Mona and Liz would be more prepared to answer questions, but any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment real quick. I was thinking about this when I was looking at the pieces, and one of the things that I appreciate about what the art committee has done lately is moved us beyond very literal Christian art. I think a lot of art in churches, it depicts scenes from the past. This is what Jesus looked like, or this is what St. John looked like. And the choices that you made invite us into conversation with these images and pieces. And I just appreciate that move for us. I think it makes pieces more interactive and helps us, and then maybe this is Anne Girondolas' point too, about into this kind of holy imagination. Who is God imagining that we become, that we grow into? And I just love that you've been helping us do that. So thank you.
Oh, it's been such fun. It was work, but definitely worthwhile, and we're kind of grateful for the encouragement to really think beyond what we had done so far. It helped a lot, because we felt all the more determined we're going to find new stuff. But I think I believe that George Floyd's death, murder, has really caused the media perhaps to make the art more visible from minority artists. There seem to be new galleries popping up and more web presence. We had a hard time at first. I would look for Black art and I would get Joseph Beuys paintings in black, He's experimental guy from the 60s. The first time I saw his art, I thought, oh, please. He's very famous. I don't know. He had a motive behind that, but not what we were looking for when we looked for Black art. So, and Black artists, and then we would get musicians, because artists is Black arts. You get a jazz concert or you get rap, and well, that was great, but it's not what we needed. So, but we found them, and Facebook helped. And once we started finding one artist, another would get mentioned in the story about that artist, and one thing led to another. So it was a nice network. The Native American Gallery, actually, all my relations, I first learned about, I think, when Dr. Alan Hopeman showed his collected works. June Peterson led us to him, and sadly, he was in, I think, 90 or in his 90s when he showed, and that was several years ago. So we have, he's no longer with us, but certainly the memories of that show live on. He had been in the service and had collected Native American artworks. So sometimes it's somebody knows, and sometimes we just find it on the web. It's really an interesting process to find these pieces and choosing and deciding. Wow, I think the hardest one, Janet McKenzie had a lot of prints, and we wanted to get them all too, but our budget limits us. And also, I mean, when you look at the essential workers, 72 pieces, and they're all amazing. They're just glorious pieces. And Amy Heinrichs has a nice comment there. Enjoyed seeing Carolyn Olsen pieces in lower hallway. Vivid, thoughtful, great acquisitions. Well, thanks. We're pleased with them too. We probably could, Stephanie, add descriptions next to the artworks as we did. We did a framed page of text when we added the Janet McKenzie pieces, because that story is important too. So it's been a fun year, and I'd love to hear from the art committee members what your thoughts are on how we did this.
I see some of you on there. I agree with Stephanie. It's just, you know, when I go to a museum, I see a picture on the wall and think, you know, maybe I like the color, or maybe I like something in it. But you read the description and you really realize, oh, I see. There's so much here that I didn't, you know, maybe it was pleasing to my eye, and that's usually, you know, also good. But there's something else being described or experienced in the painting or the visual art that I would have missed. So I like that too. And just this presentation has helped with that as well.
Great.
Well, and this is Liz Knutson here. I want to thank Susan because she's been incredible leading us. And Tim, if you think back to Tammy had it was such a, we had never done anything like it, but she hosted a chili supper with Doug Omen, who is a Minnesota. And there was this guy that I didn't know sitting there. Doug did a slideshow, and I just thought, who is that guy? He is hilarious. And someone said, it's our new organist. And I'm like, what? So that was my introduction to Tim, was at a Doug Omen show at Tammy Wold. So it was great.
Liz, you just brought it out in me.
Tammy's been #1 in connecting with artists. When before I retired, she was the only one meeting the artists, really. She would show them the gallery. I believe, Tammy, you had some of them at least over to dinner to meet your family, and I didn't even know about it. You such a gracious hostess, and then would help them understand, you know, what pieces will fit here, what's right for the environment, what works together on the way the walls are in the gallery. So we've appreciated that help, Tammy.
Susan, there's a comment in the chat about to the places that we might purchase these kinds of pieces and also support some of these artists. You mentioned one of the galleries, but I couldn't quite hear what you were saying. So if you could maybe add that, or send an article, a blog article or something in, so that we could post that on the website someplace and have some connections to some of those art shops would be great.
We do have so much detail, and I would like to kind of narrow it down and put something. It would be nice to send in an article, because then you can really explore it a little better. I haven't even seen Kate Herzog's TED Talk yet. So
What was the name of that place where you found her work?
House of Talents, all one word, .com. I can type that in there.
I got it. houseoftalents.com.
Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, and they're in the Gavaday Center. So but they do so much, a lot of it is, you know, home decor things, which are also really quite lovely. And remember, they're handmade. So you're still supporting these artists in the various countries. It's not just Mali, but I confess I can't tell you more right now. But that's what's fun, is just one thing leads to another, and you start. Oh, Tammy can't do the microphone, so she's saying thank you there in the chat. She's been wonderful, and she is wonderful. A gift to the committee. So, and Mona is one of our people who discovers people. Just you know, she'll say, "Oh, but have you seen this person?" Well, I've never heard of him. And we explore it. We go, "Oh, we want something by them." So, and once you see one piece, you want more. So these are thrilling. We'd be glad to share an article to lead you to more information. And Carolyn Olsen is also, I believe she has her own space up in Duluth, and she She shows at a place called Lizards Gallery, and it's lizards with 2 Z's, which kind of slowed us down by a few weeks trying to contact them. But Lizards Gallery in Duluth shows her work along with other artists. So yes, she's a white artist, but I think you can see by what she says and what she paints, it's still eye-opening, and she is trying to understand other cultures too. And that's what we're all trying to do, I think.
And I think, Susan, it would be also, to say anybody who happens to, find, often local, it's wonderful to support local artists, and, that beyond the art committee, certainly open to suggestions of exploring, acquiring from different artists that we might not know about.
That's right. Thanks. That's a good point, Tim.
Well, thank you, Art Committee. Especially thanks to Susan and Tammy for your leadership over these many years. Just such amount of work, and I think it's one of those kind of silent committees that's doing things behind the scenes that we might not realize. Oh, I haven't seen that piece of art there before. It's like, well, it wasn't there before. Someone moved it, and specifically moved it because of the time of year or the liturgical season, or something else has happened in the culture, and they've realized this is a good one to bring out or to promote for us right now. And so they move them into different parts of the church. So keep your eyes open. I think that Tim mentioned that, but that is really a gift of our art committee. Many congregations receive beautiful pieces and put them up, and they're kind of become relics there. They have to stay right there because that's where they're installed. And the trouble with that is that you stop looking at it after a while. But if the art is moving around, as they do in the main galleries, then you actually see it with fresh eyes, and as your body has changed, your vision of it has changed. And our team has really, really been so thoughtful with that. Liz, I know you have a lot to do with that. That's Liz's profession. She knows how to find things in your own home and says, why do you have this over here? Where it would look fantastic, and she helps you move it. And I've been too intimidated to have her in my home because she would see that I have a lot of trash in my home, and she'd say, why do you have the trash here? And so we don't go there.
Oh, Lois, if she can come to my home, she can come to your home. She took a Guatemalan tapestry style stole off of the top of my china cabinet and folded it in half and hung it up on the wall. And it looks like one of those door knocker, just beautiful. And people see it. They didn't really probably notice it on the side of the cabinet before. So there it is.
I'll just thank you for that, by the way. And this might be premature. We've only briefly talked about it, but there are plenty of, I say everyone's an artist. I tell kids, you're an artist and it's great. Don't think that other people are artists, but Gloria Dei is full of artists. And we have tossed around the idea of keeping a permanent space with rotating artists from Gloria Dei member area, just dedicating a spot. We haven't decided where that is, but if you have things that you want to show yourself, that could definitely be a possibility coming up. We're always thinking of ways to show the things that people are doing, even within the church, even if that's not your quote unquote profession. So anyway,
I'm so glad you brought that up, Liz. Thank you very much. Yeah. We will get the word out once we have a spot, but I think it's good for people to know now. Start making art now.
That's a beautiful idea. So there are artists. I see some of you out here on this screen right now. So there are artists in our congregation that do beautiful work. And speaking of artists that do beautiful work, we hope that you'll join Zoom again this afternoon at 3. Zoom or YouTube, Tim?
YouTube.
YouTube. So it's just like watching church, but it's one of our beautiful recitals. More of our artists, our musical artists that have given so much of their time. The singers that lead us each Sunday, and then another choir today. It's just stunning. And I've tried one of those virtual choirs. That is a lot of work, and it's really intimidating. So bless you, choir members and everybody who's been part of that. Tim and Paul, obviously, just an amazing amount of work. So,
And
yes, it
just a
is.
reminder, you know, it premieres at 3, but you can watch it anytime. So if you're busy in the yard or whatever, watch it later this evening or watch it tomorrow, you know, so it's available anytime after 3 this afternoon.
Good. Susan, one last question there in the chat from Kathleen about the collection of Gloria Dei and where you store the art when it's not on display.
Oh boy, is that a good question. Well, we have it stored and it's getting to be a little crammed to the gills because some of it's seasonal, and the other reason is we don't have a lot of space. So that's going to be where the rest of our budget probably goes this year. We're not going to be able to buy art. We really need to buy a place that will preserve those paintings from banging into each other and hitting the glass and having the back of one scratch the front of another. And you know, we try to be careful, and there's some felt in there that could be cut up, but there's no more growth space. I want to clarify too, that reminds me that there's also art that we hang on the walls once in a while. We just check them out of the library. That's not our collection. And I think a lot of people think it is, and it's totally understandable that that would be the case. That was from bequeathed by one of the library committee members' fathers when he passed, and he was a member of Gloria Dei, Stan Johnson, I believe. And so that's a separate collection that they've been around since way before the art gallery, and they buy maybe one piece a year. It's not a big budget either, but it's a very separate collection, and they're doing it so that you can take home a piece. But some stuff's still there, and I just think it's kind of fun to get it out where you can see those pieces too, because if you don't go walk into the inner room of the library, you won't see them. But they're not part of our committee, and we're not part of theirs, but we work together. We know about each other, we talk to each other all the time. So it's really fun.
And for those who were curious, the storage is the big double doors closets off that gallery, that are kind of on the backside of where the new elevator at the front of the church is. And a lot of that is AV equipment storage too. So the amount for the art is pretty limited.
Yeah, there's also a big map case that we bought several years ago for flat pieces that haven't been framed. We can't leave that on its side, and it has to be protected. Betty Olsen gave us an extra piece that's like her Easter resurrection piece. It's similar but different, and it's not framed, of course. So that's in the case. There are things we've gotten gifts from people that, well, we don't know if this is something we want to frame. We can't always afford to frame everything either. So there are flat pieces in there, some of Girondolas, because they're smaller pieces. And we want to protect the frames really well. They're in the drawers to the map case, but it's just, and then the top of the map case gets piled up with, visiting artists when they're in the gallery. They have all the wrappings that they brought. They don't really want to haul it back home for, a couple of months. So they leave it in the gallery closet. So yeah, we use all the space we have to the extent that we can.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tim and Susan and the rest of the art team and all of you for being here. Thanks for putting up with Zoom connections for Forum for the year. And as I said, we'll see what the fall brings us. God's blessings to you. Celebrate the life of Pentecost and the life of the Spirit in your midst, doing wonderful things. Thank you. Bless you all.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks all. Thanks, Lois.
Have a good week.
So